The Plankton Movie. So, it's no secret that the SpongeBob Movie franchise is in a pretty crappy state with the films they've been pushing out ever since 2020. The first two films both were great, and surprisingly now, the second film was starting to be praised. But after that, the third film was just not good, and now Nickelodeon is really trying to push out all these spin-off shows and spin-off movies to the point where it's getting tiring. We had the Patrick Star Show, which everyone keeps forgetting about, and for good reason. We have the Sandy Cheeks movie last year, which was hot garbage. It was one of the worst movies that came out that year. And now we have this movie, which nobody had really high hopes for, but it was kinda weird. This was also a film that somehow got leaked. And when this movie got leaked, the reception isn't actually what you were expecting. Surprisingly, people walked out of it thinking it wasn't horrible and terrible. And in fact, people thought it was actually pretty decent. Dare some people even say good.
That was pretty good, actually.
But why is this? Why would a Plankton solo movie end up being somewhat an appreciated SpongeBob movie? We gotta take a look at this, because surprisingly coming from me, I for some reason feel the same, and it's very interesting. Now, to start off with the obvious, okay, first, the animation is still not good. I can't really praise much from coming from this. I'm really saddened that, honestly, it seems like the SpongeBob Movie franchise is staying in this kind of just cheap style with its animation. It's no longer staying 2D, and now in 3D. Now, I won't lie, there are some segments in this movie that are 2D, more flashback sequences, but it's still, disheartening that probably this upcoming SpongeBob movie at the end of the year is probably gonna be fully 3D animated. So, it's just a preference for me, but this movie in particular, it still relatively looks cheap.
How could you, Mr. Krabs? You promised these children Krabby the Clown, but all I saw out there was Chibi the Cheapskate!
Now, in this instance, SpongeBob is still pushed as the side character. I mean, it's obvious this movie is focusing on Plankton. One problem I had in the Sandy Cheeks movie is that none of the jokes landed regarding SpongeBob. He almost felt more annoying, and this time around, it wasn't actually as bad, but his inclusion there is, it's a SpongeBob movie, you have to include SpongeBob some way or form. So, getting on with just the general stuff, let's get into the actual movie itself, because it's very interesting here. So the movie opens with a musical number. Yay, didn't learn anything from the last movie, but we get cut off by Plankton really introducing that this is his film. And we see a story here that's actually original, nothing really taken from a previous episode, I think. And the main meat of this movie is Plankton and his relationship with Karen, on how he's been overlooking horror ideas for the past 25 years, and after a while, Karen just gave up on Plankton, because Plankton clearly didn't want to listen to any of her ideas, and fully went rogue. Now, putting Karen as the villain of the movie actually isn't a bad idea in retrospect. And, it kind of makes sense for Karen to be fed up with all of this for so long. So putting her as the big bad actually does make sense. Plankton, throughout the entire movie, still doesn't feel like he did anything wrong to make her feel like this. And over the course of the film, we kind of get to see a lot more of his backstory with Karen, which has been split up into segments in the show, but we actually get to see it beginning to end all the way through. And he teams up with SpongeBob to try and figure out how to bring Karen back to him. It's kind of just a rekindling of their love, and through, it actually wasn't a horror show to sit through like it was with the Sandy Cheeks movie. SpongeBob takes a seat back, obviously, with this movie, but he plays more of like a therapist role, so we go really in depth with Plankton and Karen's relationship. There's a lot of different segments with different animation styles, which I wasn't expecting, so that was a surprise. And, the writing on this movie was a lot better than the Sandy Cheeks movie. Some of the jokes landed Okay, they weren't the best SpongeBob has ever made, but you know, they were surprisingly decent. Honestly, it was coming out of being fatigued from Sponge on the Run and the Sandy Cheeks movie to something that's kind of fresh here. The jokes actually do land. There are some musical numbers that some people dare call decent and rewatchable, and after coming out of the movie, the songs after the first musical number are okay. Like, I won't lie that they're not as terrible as previously, like, SpongeBob songs that have, like, come in and out of our heads that are just there to exist. Some of them are pretty decent. And, you know, the inclusion of other characters in this movie didn't feel bad. Like, in the beginning of the movie, we had this little friend group with Sandy and Mrs. Puff and Karen, and they all were, like, best friends at the beginning of the movie. Then when Karen went rogue, it was up to Sandy Cheeks and Mrs. Puff. Oh my god, I forgot Pearl. Yes, Pearl is also in the friend group. They all work together with SpongeBob and Plankton to stop Karen. And, you know, for a movie that kind of is like, it's a SpongeBob movie, but I will say the heartfelt moments between Plankton and Karen are at least done somewhat well and not taken like as a joke and, you know, moving on, because, you know, these two characters have been together like for 25 years. So, you know, getting to see their backstory, getting to see how they came together, they had this whole like evil college set point. She used to be a potato connected to a calculator, then evolved to this computer that can speak. Like, it was done pretty well, and it didn't feel too dragged out. The runtime was just fine. And then after the movie, we kind of see that, yeah, this does kind of have a live action segment, but it's not overdone like the Sandy Cheek movie was. Thank God. Because the live action segments in the last movie were horrible. So in this one, it really is only just Karen coming up to the surface and almost taking over the world, and it's just people running off of the beach. Thank goodness. Because if they actually went into the real world again, the movie would have went down again. But they kept it to a minimum. I'll say the final act was at least decent. And, you know, the movie just surprisingly just ended just like that. It's honestly not a bad SpongeBob movie, in my opinion. It's not terrible. And, you know, if you are slightly interested in, because animation Twitter is going to have an interesting day with this one. There's going to be people that slam this movie, and then there's going to be people that kind of defend this movie. It's going to be quite interesting. But what did you guys think of the Plankton movie? I'm kind of on the fence. I don't think it was that bad, but it's also weird that they just went with this really kind of cheap style again. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.